I made my teenage son walk home from practice after he disrespected his coach in front of the team. My son Marcus is 16 and plays varsity football. Wide receiver, fast as hell, and he knows it. Coach Davis has been coaching him since Marcus was in 8th grade and rode up with him from JV. He's not a yeller. He's one of those coaches who pulls you aside, keeps his voice low, explains what he wants. Marcus had a good relationship with him right up until about 2 months ago when he made varsity starter and apparently decided he'd outgrown the need for anybody's input. I started noticing it in small ways. Marcus would come home and complain that Coach Davis was running the same drills, that his route assignments weren't built for his speed, that coaches at bigger programs ran different schemes. I told him every time that he was 16, not an offensive coordinator, and his job was to do what the coach said and earn trust before offering opinions. He'd nod and I'd think it landed. It never landed. The Tuesday before last, I left work early to watch practice. I do that maybe once a month, just park in the lot and watch from the car. Marcus didn't know I was there. About 40 minutes in, Coach Davis stops the unit and calls Marcus over. I can't hear anything from that distance, but I can read the body language. He's showing Marcus something about his route, hands moving, demonstrating the cut, calm, standard correction. What happened next, I could not believe. Marcus crossed his arms, tilted his head back, and I could see his mouth moving. Not asking a question, talking back. One of the other receivers turned to watch, then a linebacker. By the time Marcus finished, half the defensive unit had turned around. Coach Davis stood there for a second, said something short, and pointed at the bench. Marcus walked off with this look on his face like he'd won something. I found out that night what he actually said. One of his teammates texted his own dad, who called me. Marcus told Coach Davis in front of the whole team that he'd been running routes for 3 years and didn't need someone who never played above high school telling him how to do it. Coach Davis played college ball at a Division II school. Marcus knew that. He said it anyway. I sat in that parking lot and waited. Practice ended at 5:30 p.m. The guys started trickling out toward the buses and parent cars. Marcus came walking out, scanned the lot, spotted my truck, came jogging over and grabbed the door handle. I didn't unlock it. He knocked on the window. I rolled it down halfway. He said, "Door's locked." I said, "I know." He kind of laughed, confused. "What?" I told him I'd watched what happened with Coach Davis and that he was walking home. The laugh stopped. He stared at me for a second like he was checking whether I was serious. Then he said it was almost 6 miles and he'd just come off 2 hours of practice. I told him he should have thought about that before he opened his mouth. He raised his voice. Said this wasn't a normal punishment, this was just mean. I told him what he did to Coach Davis in front of the whole team wasn't normal disrespect either. It was public humiliation of a man who had done nothing but invest 3 years into him. Marcus said Coach had the wrong red on the route. I told him that didn't matter. He said, "Dad." I said, "Start walking." He stood there another few seconds, called me something under his breath, and stepped back from the truck. I pulled out of the lot and watched him in the rear view. He just stood there with his bag on his shoulder, not moving yet. My wife called at 6:15 p.m. Marcus had texted her. She asked what was going on. I told her exactly what I watched happen. She was quiet for a second. Then she said, "How far is it?" I said, "Almost 6 miles." She said, "Okay." That was the end of it. He walked in at 7:40 p.m. completely soaked through his jersey, didn't say a word to me, went straight upstairs. I let it sit overnight. The next morning, I knocked on his door and he let me in. I sat on the edge of his desk and asked him what Coach Davis did wrong at that practice. He said nothing, barely audible. I asked him why he said it then. He said he was frustrated. I told him frustrated is fine. Saying it like that, in front of everyone, that's not feedback. That's trying to embarrass someone into backing down, and it's the kind of thing that follows you. He apologized to Coach Davis before practice that Thursday. Didn't want to, but he did it. Coach shook his hand and told him he was still one of the best receivers he'd ever coached. Marcus cried in the car on the way home and made me promise not to tell anyone. I'm telling the internet.